You don't notice the moment it happens, the quiet shift, the soft crack, the tiny betrayal of attention that begins the end. Relationships rarely die loudly. They dissolve in silence, molecule by molecule, inside your mind. Psychology calls it micro-decay, a habit, a behavior, an emotion you ignore until it owns you. And here's where it gets worse. You almost never see the destruction coming because it wears your face. You think relationships collapse because of big fights, but most of them die from the things you repeat daily without noticing. Here's the truth nobody wants to face. The behaviors that destroy love feel normal, logical, even justified. The mind protects your identity, even when your identity is the problem. So today, you face the shadow's 10 behaviors that quietly kill connection, trust, and intimacy. Not to judge you, but to wake you. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And here's the part you always ignore. Love doesn't fail you, your habits do. It starts small. You stop asking how their mind feels today. You assume you already know. But assumptions are emotional blindfolds. Research shows that attention is the first currency of intimacy. Without it, connection starves. And this is where most people make a mistake. They confuse routine with presence. Routine is doing things together. Presence is feeling together. You swallow your emotions, believing silence keeps the peace. But suppressed emotions don't disappear, they ferment, Jung warned. What you ignore becomes your shadow. And here's the painful part. Your shadow always leaks into your behavior. You turn love into accounting. Who gave more? Who sacrificed more? Who apologized last? Scorekeeping is the ego's way of avoiding vulnerability. But relationships are not transactions, they're ecosystems. When you turn love into debt, intimacy becomes impossible. And here's the truth you resist. Fairness is not symmetry, it's sincerity. You cling to who you were instead of growing into who you need to become. You demand that your partner adapts while you remain unmoved. Psychologists say identity is fluid, but fragile minds treat it as stone. And this explains why nothing changed yet. You want growth without discomfort. You wait for connection to just work, as if relationships run on autopilot. But every mind needs tending. Every heart needs tuning. Emotions are like language. If you don't practice speaking them, you lose fluency. And here's the mistake you never admit. Avoiding emotional effort is still a choice, and it has consequences. You think checking their phone, tone, or timing will protect you. But distrust doesn't prevent betrayal, it creates emotional distance that feels like betrayal itself. Psychology calls this self-fulfilling suspicion. Fear shapes behavior until the fear becomes reality. And here's the part you don't want to confront. You can't build safety from fear. You try to manage everything, your reactions, their reactions, every possible outcome. But over-control is just another form of panic, disguised as discipline. And here's where most people fail. Control kills spontaneity. And without spontaneity, love can't breathe. You avoid the talks that matter because they threaten the comfortable fiction you built. But the conversation you fear is the one that would save you. Research shows unresolved conflict rewires the subconscious, teaching you to fear intimacy. And here's what you always ignore. Discomfort is the doorway to deeper connection. You're still physically there, but your mind walks out days before your body does. You stop sharing thoughts, then emotions, then dreams. Emotional ghosting is the slowest form of abandonment and the most painful. And here's the truth. Nobody speaks. Silence screams louder than anger ever could. You stop observing the small things, the way they breathe when they're worried, the way their mind tightens before it breaks. Love dies when attention dies. Psychologists say that being seen is the deepest human desire. And when you stop seeing them, they stop being themselves with you. And this is where relationships collapse quietly. Identity fades before love does. Here's the painful part. Every behavior that destroys love begins as self-protection. You didn't mean to hurt them, you meant to protect yourself. But fear-based habits become emotional armor, and armor is heavy. And here's the contradiction you never see. Armor keeps danger out, but it also keeps love out. Picture this: two people who care, standing inches apart, but emotionally miles away. Not because they stopped loving, but because they stopped understanding. And misunderstandings are how relationships bleed out slowly. Here's the part you avoid. Love doesn't collapse quickly. It erodes like stone underwater. And now, something inside you stirs recognition. You see pieces of your own behavior in these shadows. It stings. But the sting is good, it means you're waking. And here's the moment most people miss. Awareness is the first act of transformation. Each destructive behavior is rooted in the same three forces: fear, habit, and unhealed trauma. Fear shapes the mind. Habits shape the behavior. Trauma shapes the identity. And here's the paradox. The person you love today might be reacting to wounds you never caused, but you do the same to them, two histories colliding in the present moment. This is why love feels complex. It's not just two hearts meeting, it's two pasts negotiating. And this explains why nothing healed. You were fixing the symptoms, not the roots. You argued about the surface, while the truth sank deeper each day. Psychology teaches what you avoid expands, and your avoidance built a maze you now feel trapped inside. But clarity begins when you finally admit, yes, some of this is me. That admission is not defeat, it is liberation. Because when you see your own patterns, you reclaim your power to change them. And here's the quiet miracle. Awareness softens the mind, and a softened mind can love again. You begin to breathe deeper. The inner noise lowers. Something shifts. This is the moment right before transformation, the pause before the new identity forms. You start to understand that relationships break not from lack of love, but from lack of awareness. Awareness is the quiet revolution, the one that doesn't make noise, but changes everything. And here's the truth you never wanted to face. You cannot love someone well if you cannot observe yourself. Relationships mirror your subconscious. Every reaction is a reflection. And when you change the observer, the entire relationship shifts. Psychologists say identity isn't who you are, it's who you repeatedly choose to be. Which means you can choose differently. Even today. Even now. Here's the part you always overlook. Growth feels like loss at first. You lose an old version of yourself, the one who operated from fear and habit. But the version that replaces it is stronger, calmer, and capable of real intimacy. Now you face a choice. Continue with the behaviors that destroy love, or step into the ones that build it. Most people choose comfort. But comfort is how relationships quietly die. And here's where most people make the fatal mistake. They wait for the other person to change first. Waiting is just another form of emotional avoidance. And avoidance is how love suffocates. But something new is forming inside you, a willingness to face your patterns instead of hiding behind them. That willingness is emotional courage, the rarest form of strength. Research shows emotional courage increases relationship longevity more than compatibility does. And here's the beautiful twist. Courage is contagious. Your shift inspires their shift. This is how two people heal. Not simultaneously, but sequentially. One brave moment at a time. Intimacy isn't about proximity. It's about psychological openness. And openness begins when you stop defending and start revealing. It's terrifying at first, revealing your fears, hopes, wounds, dreams. But vulnerability is not weakness, it's emotional alignment. And alignment is how two minds finally meet in the same moment. With awareness, the old patterns start losing power. You pause before reacting. You breathe before blaming. You observe before judging. And here's the shift nobody notices happening. Your mind becomes quieter. Quiet minds create safe relationships. And safety is the soil where love grows back stronger than before. You start expressing emotions with honesty instead of fear. You stop punishing them for wounds they didn't cause. You stop ghosting your own needs. You stop running from conversations that could save the relationship. And here's the powerful part. When you change how you show up, everything else recalibrates around you. You see that love wasn't broken. It was suffocating under behaviors you didn't recognize. Now the oxygen returns. Emotional space opens. The atmosphere shifts. You feel connection rebuilding. Slow, steady, alive. And here's the part most people miss. Rebuilding is more intimate than falling in love. Because rebuilding requires consciousness, the highest form of love. Something subtle shifts. You no longer fear the truth you wanted. Because truth, even when sharp, is cleaner than the slow decay of avoidance. And here's the awakening most people never reach. You realize love is a skill, not a miracle. Skills can be learned, and relearned, and mastered, which means you are not broken, you are trainable. You begin practicing curiosity instead of defensiveness. You begin listening to understand, not to win. You begin revealing your inner world instead of protecting it with silence. You begin choosing responsibility over blame, the hardest evolution of the mind. And here's the beautiful paradox. Taking responsibility makes you feel safer, not smaller. You apologize, not to surrender, but to reconnect. You express needs before resentment grows teeth. You ask questions that reveal their emotional landscape. And you finally understand that love thrives in observation, not assumption. This is how intimacy is rebuilt. Not through grand gestures, but through micro-awareness. A healed mind doesn't control, it collaborates. It doesn't fear silence, it fills it with presence. It doesn't cling, it chooses freely. It doesn't repeat the past, it learns from it. And that learning becomes the architecture of a new relationship, stronger, cleaner, calmer. You look at them now with new eyes, not demanding, not fearful, just present. They feel the shift. People always feel emotional shifts before they understand them. And suddenly the space between you softens. This softness is the beginning of healed connection. And here's the truth you needed all along. Love doesn't ask you to be perfect, only conscious. You no longer see relationships as battles, but as shared journeys. You no longer see conflict as danger, but as information. You no longer see vulnerability as exposure, but as alignment. And you stop trying to win because winning always means someone loses. Love is not a competition. It's a collaboration between two evolving identities. You begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time, emotional spaciousness. The mind unclenches. The heart unguards. The body exhales. And in that exhale, intimacy returns not as a memory, but as a new beginning. You now understand the simple truth. Relationships break when the mind sleeps, and heal when the mind wakes. Waking up is not dramatic, it's subtle, quiet, almost invisible, but everything after waking becomes different. You love differently. You listen differently. You exist differently. Consciousness becomes your new foundation, and everything built on it feels stronger. So remember, your mind built the cage, but now you hold the key. Walk out